especially after that mental breakdown, that was a moment of, all right, I almost lost my life over this. So I think I need to make a bold choice, at least to try. Because why not? Yeah, and so sometimes you have to make really brave moves that make you feel uncomfortable, but are ultimately better for you. And I did not want to quit that job. Not that I was happy there. It's the paycheck. It's the stability.
Hi, I'm Becky. Welcome to Short Story Long. In this podcast, we discuss ways you can integrate who you are into how you lead. There are times when we realize the path we're on is no longer ours to walk. The rules we followed, the expectations we've carried, and the identities we've worn start to feel too small for who we are becoming. That moment, while uncomfortable, is also powerful. It's the invitation to break free from old definitions of success and step boldly into something truer. With today's guest, we explore what it takes to walk away from security that no longer serves us, to challenge the stories we've been handed, and to create a life built on purpose rather than pressure. It's about courage, resilience, and the conviction that we get to define our own worth. Today, I'm joined by Chris Blount, who is an artist, writer, and podcaster from New Orleans by way of Tacoma, Washington. He started his creative journey in hip-hop and has since evolved into podcasting and studio management. He started On Purpose Recordings as a way to work for himself and help others achieve their dreams of recording and creating art. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lovely intro. I love it.
Thank you. You know, it's great to have good material
Make me
to
sound
write.
so official. I appreciate that.
And, you know, we did give you fair warning that we would be talking about a specific inflection point in your life. And I'm really excited to be able to talk about this, explore it, and then really just have that discussion, right, about where it has gone for you since that particular point in time and the journey since then.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'd love to do is just start us by defining what that inflection point looked like. So can you share with the listeners, just in a general high level, what was the inflection point that we'll be talking about today?
All right. Mine is mostly built around restructuring my life and how my expectations and things of how I grew up versus how I choose to live my life now, especially when it comes to being a professional. You know, I come from a very blue collar family, and the whole thing is you're a provider. That is your worth as a man. You work until you don't. That is everything that you're worth. Right. And I had that pressure on me for years. And then I had these moments where it was sort of like a breaking point where I did not see myself really surviving that in a healthy fashion. And I decided to go against the grain and go towards my dreams and go towards the things that I really want to do. That started On Purpose Recordings. And that's how I end up here now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And it is interesting in the way that we grow up. I too came from blue collar background, right? Farm girl, all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting how there are beliefs and expectations we have of ourselves throughout our lives that if we don't question them, can really take a piece of our soul away from us. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and just understand all of the ramifications. So talk to me a little bit about before you made this change. What kind of work were you doing? What was going on for you?
All right. So I was always work focused. I think that when I was young, I came up from a lower middle class family. So it was a way of helping out my family initially. You know, I was a grocery store in high school. And so I worked, and it felt good to earn money that I made, you know, from hard work. And I think that was always encouraged by others too. So I think, you know, you get money, we're like, oh, you're getting money, or he's working. And what I would hear, I'm thinking about this from a reflective standpoint, because the compliments that I used to see that men received had everything to do with what they provided and how they worked. So either they, you know, oh, he fixed my car, or he brings home a check. Like, that's a hardworking gentleman. It was never really about who the people were or how they felt as people. And I think that was one of the core things that caused me to ignore the whole mental health aspect. It's just this is what you did. So
Right.
I went to college. I for a little bit that was okay, and I ended up working and getting involved in hotels, and so I got into hotel management. Worked my way up from a bellman to a manager, and I just knew customer service well. I worked in the French Quarter in New Orleans, and if anybody knows that, it can be very intense. So
Yes.
it's not like my job was boring. It was definitely moments of granted high stress, but also camaraderie. You learn to build community. You learn to work with people who are totally different from you. And in that part, I was very fulfilled as a young kid growing up, into an adult male. And so that was one of the things that kind of kept me going. And also just getting that level of reassurance from outside sources. The oh, Chris kept a job, because the job I had, I kept for a long time.
Okay.
And so then I moved around. I moved to Chicago, lived in Chicago for 4 years. Became an adult. I always tell people I became a for real adult in Chicago. I had no safety net. But the time I moved to Chicago a month before Hurricane Katrina. So
Mm.
I still lost my stuff. But
Yes.
because it was in storage, it was supposed to move up, and then it was like there is no
Yes.
storage. So it was a way of kind of removing the safety net from me and having this whole new world. And then living out there, growing up, getting married, moving to Dallas, and then switching it up because I didn't do hotels anymore, but I still did customer service. And
Mm.
then eventually moving out here to Tacoma, Washington, where I would work for the city. And while it was definitely more, it was probably a more cush, like it wasn't as traumatic because I didn't have to deal with hotel guests and a lot of things. I had to deal with the people of the city.
Right. The drama is a little bit
The
different,
drama is a little
right?
bit
When you're
different.
doing hotel management
Yeah,
in New Orleans, particularly, I'm imagining Mardi Gras might have been an
it
experience in
yes.
and of itself.
Still do not like Mardi Gras. So,
And even in the off season
mhm,
piece of things, I'm sure that there were still interesting and engaging people coming in
absolutely.
and all of those experiences. And then, I mean, Chicago is not quite New Orleans in terms of
No.
that kind of activity, but at the same time, more of that fly by the seat of your pants a little bit
Hmm.
in terms of who you're interacting with. Where city, I'm guessing here, so you tell me, a little bit more predictable in
Yeah.
some respects. But how did the pressure shift, would you say?
That's a great question. I would say that what I've learned is that the people match the weather. I think that in New Orleans, it's pretty hot and humid. We don't have time to play with you. We are very honest, right? And
Mm,
charismatic in a way. And so you'll get told off or whatever, and it's with a smile and a joke. In Chicago, the weather's harsh, and so are the people. So they'd be like, you know, I get a complaint. They'd be like, "Hey, and what's your name?" I'll be like, "It's Chris." F you, Chris. Personally, like I'm like, yo,
wow. Okay. Well, thanks and have a
okay,
good day.
But so Chicago gave me that kind of thick skin
Mm-hmm.
when I moved to Chicago, fresh out of the South. We're all about manners and all the things. And I remember walking downtown, and I was like, "Good morning," and the person was like, "I don't know you," and I was so hurt. I was like, "Oh my
Yes.
god, that's so mean." And 3 years later, I'm just like, "Oh yeah, screw everybody. It's cool. We're,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
get through this.
I don't speak to
Let's go
people
downstairs.
anymore.
Yeah, let's go down the street." So they gave me thick skin, and I think I learned how to navigate different crowds of people. I think people adjust. In New Orleans, it's a magical city because people adjust to our lifestyle in a sense. So everybody kind of cuts loose. You get people that are generally, at least they try to be in a good mood, right? In
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, is very much everyday people. You get your business types. It gets a little bit more complex when it comes to people. And so that taught me how to deal with different cases and scenarios, and I appreciate my experience in Chicago. It opened my mind up, it opened my world, and I will always appreciate it. So that's why I loved it. Um, People are people at the end of the day. Like even out here, when I worked in customer service out here, it was still some of the same people, but it was very much. you can tell a lot of people went to therapy. And so it was like, listen, I know I don't want to trigger you, man, but F this. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. I get a warning. That's
Right.
awesome. I
Right.
like that
Right.
about you
Yeah.
guys. You know, so
Yeah.
so it was
Yeah, I don't
definitely
take the direct hit immediately.
yeah.
Instead, I get to have this warning shot so I can back up a little bit before true impact is coming my
Exactly.
way.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also that I know this is my stuff, not your stuff. So we're just right, exactly. And it's just one of those ways that conversations of the same nature can take a different tone.
Yes.
And yet, one of the things that you were describing earlier as you approached this change in your life was, wow, things started getting harder.
Yeah.
What was it that shifted for you that started making some of these things so much harder?
I think the lack of the ability to balance my life and work life. There was no peace. I have I'm married and I have three kids. So my oldest child is special needs. He's nonverbal. He's gonna be my forever child. So I'm taking care of my children. I'm dealing with life and all the things that go around it. And then I'm working at a high stakes job. Because yes, it's the city, but there's so much that goes on, and there's a lot of corporate politics that happen, right? There's a lot of
Yes.
micromanagement, and there's microaggressions, all the things that go along with working in an office with people. And I think at the time it just became so overwhelming. And what I was always taught is just you suck it up. This is life. It's not supposed to be fair.
Yeah, this is why they call it work.
Yeah, this is why they call it
right?
work. It's supposed to be fair.
Yes.
I did not think about my mental health or happiness per se. And it's weird because it was a contrast to other aspects of my life. In other aspects of my life, I am all about happiness over tradition. So it was interesting that when it came to something like a job, I turned that off. And I put that, and then there's this kind of martyrism that comes with working hard to support your family. But after a while, I could not effectively support my family because I was working so hard. And not necessarily supporting from a financial standpoint. I wasn't there presently. You work and then you come home and you're trying to nurse the issues that you're having. The whole time I was drinking more, right? Not to say that I had a drinking problem, but it's like you're not present.
Right. The container
Yeah.
for your family was already drained
Exactly.
by work by the time that you got back home.
Yes. So I don't want to hear about my child's day.
Right.
Because it's like,
I don't have emotional capacity to take that
Yeah.
at that point in time, I'm guessing.
I
Yeah.
just, at the time I would come home, I would hear a bunch of you take in a lot of people's stuff too, especially if you're talking to the people of the city and you're hearing all these stories, which are all relevant. There are people who are for real struggling, lights turned off, all the things, right? And so you take in that whether you like to or not. You take in that, and then you got to go home, and your child needs something, and you got to tough it out because it's not their fault. It's not their fault. So
Yeah.
I was very big on not taking it out on my family, and did a terrible job at that. I was trying.
Right.
Did not work out well. And it just
Well,
it became
if
more
you
of a-
had been successful with that, you might have still been doing
I
that.
might
It
have.
seems like you had to have this almost perfect storm of a circumstance
Yeah.
before it finally snaps your attention to say, wow, this can't go this way. This is not my path.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting to me too that you were talking about the different kinds of people and, related to the weather patterns of the region and things. And I'm hearing that in Washington, where you are, that it's a little bit like flowing with the tides a little bit in terms of, we've learned a little bit about ourselves. We've done the therapy and we're kind of valuing our mental health. And at the same time, you hadn't reached that point yet. You were, fresh from your last location. And it sounds like you didn't necessarily tap into that kind of mentality and that kind of pattern yet.
Yeah, at the time I was battling 38, 39 years of a certain way of living, and to your point, along with the people match the weather thing, out here it kind of rains, it kind of snows. You don't really, people are passive aggressive, right? So it's it's very much that, and I'm a very direct person, and so there was an adjustment of living out here, and another thing is that it was incredibly isolating coming out here. This is the first time moving out here was the first time I did not have community as easily as I thought I did. New Orleans, of course, born and raised, but even in Chicago, I had community.
Mm-hmm.
In Dallas, I had community. And so out here, it was very much, people were more so introverted into themselves. And I did not have I do think the feeling of isolation only enhances a lot of the mental health issues that I did have. Right? Because there was no place to talk. There was nobody, you trick yourself into your mind saying, nobody cares. Because the world's still moving. And you gotta keep going. And so with that, you end up gaslighting yourself into a deeper form of depression. Mm-hmm. And that was happening to me. I was damn near delusional in a lot of ways, because
you were telling yourself all sorts of stories, it sounds like.
Yeah,
no one's here for me. If they were here for me, they wouldn't want to hear this story anyway.
Exactly.
And this is just what it's supposed to be. And I have to knuckle in and just get the job done.
Yeah.
Because this is what life is supposed to be. And so that's where it goes. And I know you mentioned the idea of depression, and that's a serious condition. Right. That's, I mean, people sometimes use that in fly by night sort of colloquial kinds of ways, but it's truly something that can shift how you view yourself, how you view your world and your life in general. And I know you've talked about it in being that way. What is it that you feel like your options felt like they were, right? Like you're going through this. And I know now, right, you launched your business and things like that, but there was other opportunities, right? Like going into a different job, doing different things. What were the options that you were considering at that stage?
At the time, that was the best job that worked for me.
Okay.
At the time, like it was convenient. It actually paid really well, and it worked with my schedule with the family, right? I was able to still be home with the kids and help them with homework, or just be there to do tasks in the evening, right? So there was that. But also, we had talked about, I remember my family and we talked about me getting therapy, because I was obviously a little bit like unhinged, but at the time I did not know how therapy was supposed to go. I just thought, hey, whoever you get, you just get. And I had a therapist that had no idea how to relate to me. So that was a frustrating experience as well. I remember it was one lady, and I'm pretty sure she was a lovely person, but like there were times where they were like, well, why are you so paranoid around police? And I was like, because I'm
really This feels like a simple equation.
I was like, have you read like history or like anything?
Right, so, or the news?
I didn't, yeah. So and I was, so that part, it should give you insight into how much it was such a disconnect. So once again, it just increased those feelings of isolation, because it's like, okay,
absolutely.
I can go to therapy.
Even my therapist doesn't understand me.
My therapy doesn't understand me. And so, and little did I know that sometimes you can just switch your therapist. So
yes.
I didn't know about that or how to go about it. So everything felt like walls closing in. I didn't, when you're so much in your head, even the people that love you can't be there for you because you won't allow them to. Because you got it set in your head that you are in this alone. And that's what I realized, there was the power of perception. We make our own reality. We are the gods of our world, and so it really changes. And I'm really grateful to have seen that side, to see the other one, because it makes me appreciate both.
It is truly amazing how much what we tell ourselves and how we drive our thinking has such a powerful effect on how we feel about things. And then those two things combined, how much they show up in the solutions that we even identify. Yeah. Because when we're really, my world, I refer to it as a catabolic energy that's just really like pulling people down. And you can't come up with solutions for how to get you out of where you are when you're in that kind of energy. You need to be able to tap into like a higher form of energy to be able to go ahead and do that. And I don't mean that in sort of some ethereal sort of way. It's really like, how do you get your brain to start processing the possibility of an alternate truth to what you've been telling yourself, which is essentially not true, but that's what you're believing
You
anyway.
have to rewire your brain. I did not realize
Yes.
that. I had some external things that happened that caused that change.
Okay.
I had a mental breakdown, and it eventually would cause a suicide attempt. And so
Okay.
that was a watershed moment for me. And because it was like, well, if you do this, you can, but did you try everything? Nobody can talk me out of it because I didn't talk to anybody about it. I
Right.
was like, I like even there's this pride, especially when it comes to like this whole like masculine thing. It's like, nah, don't reach out for help. That's corny. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, you're gonna seem soft. And I was like, if I'm doing, I'm gonna just do it. I was in that space. And
Yes.
but I also was like, well, if I can do it, I can talk myself into like holding it on. It's not like after something like that, you walk away and you're like, I'm fine. You're not
Right.
fine.
Yes.
You're not
No,
fine.
no,
And
there's a process of
yeah,
unwinding all of the things that you've spun
absolutely.
into that
Because the
story.
first time I thought it was like, I
Absolutely.
can't believe I was about to do that. But also, I also don't see myself not doing it. And then I remember talking to somebody about depression, and it was like at some point, you stop managing depression, and then depression start managing you. And
Mm.
after kind of working through things and coming out of it, I realized how powerful and the strong hold that depression can have on you. Like it is not a
Yes.
mood situation; it is a whole
It's a
brain
chemical,
rewiring. Yeah, it's a
biological, all the
chemical.
things.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so your body hurts. Everything like it's serious, and it made me respect it so much. And respect, and also have gratitude and grace for other people when they deal with that. I mean, not to say that I felt a way. I didn't really judge people who had depression. I was just like, oh yeah, they just went through it. But I
Right.
also thought like it was a mood thing. Like, oh, they just felt bad and it got the best of them at the moment. And
Right.
after coming out of it, you're like, oh no, they really couldn't. It is something that is beyond their control. It was something that was beyond my control. I had a few things happen, and then there was the beginning of 2020. My I had a tragic incident in my family in which a person I grew up with, my cousin, was murdered,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and
Yeah.
that changed. That's something like a jolt that changes everything, and it happened in such a traumatic fashion that I had no choice but to change everything. And so I always tell people I was not the same after that. And not only that, it would happen right before COVID. So
So then you also go into essentially a direct isolation, which
yeah,
is exactly what was a challenge for you even prior to that. So talk to me a little bit, because I can't appreciate more what you're saying in terms of the inner and outer work that you have to do in order to just get to the surface, and
yeah.
then also move toward launching your own business and going in that direction. What was it that you had identified at that point as that kind of North Star thing that was really pulling you toward where you are now?
Honestly, all right. So to back up a little bit, so before COVID started in 2019, I started on purpose. And I quit my job late 2019, and a lot of that came from conversations that I would have with my partner, my wife, and she was letting me know. She was like, "Chris, we are good. You can, we saved up money. I make money, and honestly, with everything going on, it will be great if you were at home. And also, it's no good to be here if you can't be happy. It's no good to keep that job if you can't be happy." And I appreciate her so much for letting me know, even though I was still uncomfortable, but let me know it's okay to try something. She was like, "You
Yes.
can always go back to work or a different job, but just try doing something that you want to do." And she knew how happy I was because I'd started podcasting just to like talk with people. Like I said, I was
Yeah.
very isolated. So I started podcasting it was a way to talk with my friends. And so I would do that, and I was like, hey, I would do this for a living. And she was like, you should try to start a business. I was like, I want to, but I couldn't believe, like, me. And so I decided to take the plunge and quit my job because I wasn't happy there. But it never occurred to me to quit a job because I wasn't happy. Like, I felt the old men of the past judging me. I did.
Yes, they're just standing there, right,
Yeah.
inside your mind going, what are you
What are
thinking?
you
This is
doing?
not what grown men do, right?
Exactly.
And
And
yeah,
so, thinking back on it, it's very much that what they like to call John Henryism. You work hard and you work against the machine, and yeah, you can beat the machine, but you're gonna die.
yeah,
And so I didn't want that to be me. I Especially after that mental breakdown, that was the moment of, all right, I almost lost my life over this. So I think I need to make a bold choice, at least to try. At least to
yes.
try, because why not? Yeah, and so sometimes you have to make really brave moves that make you feel uncomfortable, but are ultimately better for you. And I did not want to quit that job. Not that I was happy there. It's the paycheck. It's the
It's the
stability.
security.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is it? I mean, you had the conversations with your wife
Mhm.
and you don't want to be there anyway.
Yeah.
So reasonable motivations to go.
Mhm.
And yet you're saying, I wasn't really ready to leave yet.
No.
What was the final thing that prompted you to say, you know what? I'm done. I'm
Ooh.
resigning.
It was really petty. Um,
Oh, you know how often I hear that though, right? It's like,
yeah.
you know what? The final straw just showed up and now I'm done.
Somebody tried to write me up for something stupid, and I was like, you know what? I'm quitting. That's it. Like, I had been there for years, and it was relatively small, but it was a one-on-one sit down, and we were listening to calls, me on the phone with a customer, and she was like, you don't sound motivated enough. And I was like, was the customer upset? She was like, no, but like, we hear you. You and I was like, she was like, why are you? I was like, I'm here for the money. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, you think I wake up and be like, customer
I really
service?
want to help
Yeah,
people.
it's
Yeah.
like, no, we're here for money. I'm here so I can get paid and you guys have great medical insurance. That is it. And so that's when I realized. I was like, oh, I don't want to be here. And then something happened, like, along that line from that meeting. They were like, well, we're going to, like, put you, like, on a probation thing. And I was like, I am
No,
adult.
you're not.
I don't want this. You know what? I'm going to quit. And it was like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm out. I don't want to do this because micromanagement annoys me to my soul.
Yeah.
And I just didn't, and I got sick and tired of all the corporate things, and it's soulless, and it doesn't make it a joyful experience at all coming to work. And so it just wasn't worth the free pizza every month.
Right, right.
It wasn't.
And especially when you had to fight hard for the best piece
Exactly.
anyway. And, you know, it strikes me too that the guy who hates micromanagement
Mhm.
and wants to do things his own way, let me think now, he's an entrepreneur now,
Yeah,
right? So
now I have
that seems to line up
Yeah.
pretty well,
And
right?
it's crazy. I think it was one of the things where it taught me to, even when I had a chance to lead other people, it taught me to lead with compassion.
Mhm.
Because I know that it's all a trickle down thing. There's corporate interests, there's people breathing down their neck, so I can't really be mad at them. It's the system that's built upon that creates that kind of toxic environment. But it doesn't. And I was looking around and I was like, man, nobody's happy. Nobody's happy.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, they're in a sense of line, or they're trying to cope in some way. And most of the time, we're off work. We're spending time coping. We're trying to find other things to do to get our mind off work, even though we got to be there in like 8 hours. So it's just, I was like, I don't know if I want this life.
Right. Well, and it sounds like you were very clear and getting clearer all the time
Yeah.
about this is actually just not the life for me.
No, it
And
wasn't.
then you make this switch and you start really building out and going full time into building your own practice.
Yeah.
I'm going to imagine that wasn't easy every day and linear up to the point of success either.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you recognized as things that you just really had to shift about yourself as you went from corporate or city employee to I'm the entrepreneur and I run the show?
Being okay with my decisions, even when they're bad, or like even when they're unfortunate, and giving myself. I had to learn to give myself grace. One of the things I think it was Nipsey Hussle pointed out this, Kyrus. So I think he was like the only difference between me and someone who isn't successful is like I just didn't give up, and and I realized like I'm gonna fail a bunch, and I did. There were moments I was like, oh yeah, I got my studio got robbed. There was a bunch of stuff stolen, and I was like, I just lost $10,000 worth of things,
Yeah.
and everything could. I've experienced every single emotion you should have or you can have with regards to owning anything. And the thing is, I've always though just keep going, keep going. I would have never been to this point had I given up, and even when it was very dim. And it taught me resilience. It taught me grace for anything because I had to give myself grace. They were like sometimes like, yeah, that was a dumb decision, but
I should have looked around the
probably should
corner
have did
before
that.
I
Yeah,
did
there
that.
were some
Yes.
purchases like I did not need this at all. I
Yes.
thought I did, but I did not need this at all. But at the end of the day, there's no. It's fine. You're gonna fail. You're gonna and you have to be comfortable with it. And sometimes you gotta have a short memory as well. So I learned that. I learned that with relationships. I learned that with business. Like you gotta. It's never personal. So it's never personal. So I learned to not take things personally. If someone wants to not use my company for whatever reason, it's like it's okay. I don't even get mad. I don't. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm just not your person,
Yeah,
and
I'm
that's
just not your
okay.
person. Yeah, rejection is protection, right? Some things aren't meant for you, and that's okay. And
Absolutely. And
so,
in fact, have you ever taken on someone who wasn't the right person for you, but it was sort of during a hungry period within your business and
absolutely.
it didn't go right?
Oh my God, yes, I have.
Yes, even by your reaction, I'm seeing that we had a similar experience where it was like, oh, I need to exit stage right as
Yeah.
quickly as possible.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
and it's. I didn't have a problem with turning that business down because it was against my morals. So I just didn't
Mm.
want to, and they were insufferable. But so I was like, you know what? Don't need this money. It's fine.
Yeah.
You should
Yeah.
go elsewhere.
The cost is too high for that kind of
Exactly.
revenue,
I was
right?
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's not enough therapy to deal with this.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead on and pass. But those are lessons that you learn because before that, I have taken business where I was like, I didn't like this that much. And while the experience wasn't terrible, I did not feel great. Because I was like, I
Yes.
did not enjoy this. And it's bold. And I felt like it was a bold thing to even think you're supposed to enjoy what you do. I felt like it would be unfair to. And then finding out, oh, no, I can enjoy this. I can enjoy what I want to do. I can get paid for stuff that I like. And that to me is, I feel like that's the new American dream, to be able to enjoy life as what it is.
Yes. All of these things that happen around us aren't necessarily, to your earlier point, they're not necessarily happening to us.
No.
That's not personal all the time. And when we start to look at, wow, that happened, how do I choose to interact with that within my life?
Mm-hmm.
I might walk away. I might engage. I might, really double down and engage. And yet we're still in that place where we get to choose.
Yeah.
How deep am I going to go into this mess?
Yeah.
And I can always back out, and almost always. I'm sure there are circumstances where that's not possible, but
There's always a choice.
there's always
Yeah.
a choice. You just may not like the consequences of some of those choices, but there's always
There's
a
definitely
choice.
tough choices. There's definitely
Yes.
tough choices, but there's always a choice that's gonna. Someone said like these things happen for you, not to you.
Yes.
And so I realized that each experience that I've had, whether positive or negative, I've benefited from everything. Whether it's I benefited in a happier way, or I benefited from this is a lesson I've learned. And once that's happened, like that allows me to approach life from a more positive and joyous point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So if someone were feeling stuck in their career, in their life, what have you, maybe for different reasons than you felt stuck, right? And some of the beliefs that you had at the time,
mm-hmm.
what is the advice that you would give to someone to consider and think about?
Honestly, that as we said before, nothing's personal. People are just navigating life through the reflections of how they feel about themselves. So when you see something, even if it's compliments, right? They feel somewhere about themselves, and it allows them to feel somewhere about you. So it's like, hey, I'm having a beautiful day. You're beautiful. I'm having a crappy day. You're crappy. Everything's crappy, right? And none of it has to do with you. And I learned, and I would say, check your ego. It's often we have to remind ourselves that our ego is not. You get no tax breaks for being right.
Yes.
So
wouldn't that be nice though?
Oh, I would love it. I would be petty as hell. I'm like, well, actually, and pull up my glasses every time. But yeah, and even times I have to check my ego because some things aren't worth addressing. I think that the greater good is your peace. And we get into this mode of everybody, these catchphrases, buzzwords of I'm going to protect my peace and things like that. But what I realized is that protecting your peace, it has to include giving yourself peace, finding that self-peace. It starts from within. So before I had gratitude and grace for anybody else, I had to have gratitude and grace for myself. And that was the hardest part.
Well, and that's where you were talking about earlier, that everything that we see in other people is a reflection of how we see ourselves. Yes. I once was in a situation where I was doing exercises, and I was a student. I wasn't a teacher in that process. And it was so interesting because they had us sitting in the middle, and there was a circle of people around us. And what are the things that you're noticing, right? What are the first impressions of those? We didn't know each other real well at the time. What are you noticing about that person? Well, how does that show up in your life? I use this a lot in coaching still, actually, because it's what are the things. So how does that characteristic, how does that trait show up in your life? And boy, there's some really interesting conversations that can come from that kind of thing. But it's also the insights that people get from that. And this is such a powerful conversation, and I could talk to you forever, but I'm just wondering a little bit, is there anything that you would want to share with me that we didn't discuss, or are there any questions that you would want to kind of just chat about and talk through?
Actually, yeah, I have a question for you.
Okay, hit me.
Because honestly, we all right, before I get to this one, right, overall what we've been talking about is like, I would say change your perception. And I'm a movie buff. I love movies. One of my favorite movies, and I go back to this because it was a movie I watched like in 2000, early 2000 something, but I find myself going back to it because it affected me a lot, and not a lot of people love the movie, but whatever. It was Vanilla Sky, and I know it stars Tom Cruise. It stars Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz. But without any spoilers or whatnot, it was really about the perception of reality. This person, when his life was great, is because he thought it was great. And when he started thinking it was terrible, everything in his life became terrible. And they took a science fiction approach to it, but it's very literal in a sense of like your life is exactly how you craft it. And so one of the things they say is like every passing moment offers another chance to turn it all around. Mm-hmm. And so they say that, and also what's happiness to you. And it forced me it caused me to think about those questions for myself. And it would later on benefit me in life to this day. So, yes. So that's good.
I love that.
Thank you. So I would ask you, what was your watershed moment and your breaking point? Like,
mine was petty too.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's the butterfly effect. Like
it is. It is. Yeah, I had left an employer of probably about 10 years, probably closer to like 9. And I had jumped without looking. And we joined up with the best of intentions in mind, and we were both wrong. We were just both wrong. It wasn't a good match. And to your point, nothing's personal. It's not that I took it personally at the time, but in hindsight, I'm looking at that saying, look, everybody just, had the best of intentions and the worst of experiences. And I contributed to their bad experience, and I can own that. I'm a grown-up. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons that I had left the prior employers because I'd just done too much architecture of layoffs and communications and everything, and foolishly worked for a company that was owned by private equity. So within a few months, they were like, yeah, so we need you to do a layoff. But it was a small company, not a large company. And so all the structures that I had in place and all the ways that people had been trained, yeah, all of that was gone. And I really had to muscle through that transition. And I happened to be in coach training at the time. And I brought it to one of my coach training sessions and was like, this is a hot mess. Like this is what I ran away from. And here I am in the midst of it again.
Yeah.
And in that coaching conversation, it came out, well, I should start my own business. And I had joked in the past, I will never be an entrepreneur. I'm not built for that. And of course, absolutely I am. Yeah. And I got back and I did that action and I sat with it for a couple of months. But then something else was just that little trigger. Somebody did something that just made me lose my ever-loving mind. I had visualizations of things that are not within my character normally. Yeah. And I said, you know what? This just needs to be done. And, I talked to my husband before I quit. He even helped me come up with the name for my business, right? Like all that kind of stuff. But it was just one of those moments where I couldn't see myself staying in that role. And when I thought about moving into I was in human resources at the time, and thinking of those moments where I would move into other HR roles, I would read those job descriptions, Chris. I can't do that work. Yeah. It is no longer who I am. So I had to spend months upon months figuring out who I was now, that I wasn't that. But I just could no longer do the work. Yeah.
That is, I understand that greatly. Because I feel you. There comes a point where you evolve so much far that you can't go back.
You can't go back.
It makes no sense to. Because part of it is we know too much at this moment, and we know what serves us. And
absolutely.
What doesn't. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I thought at one point about going back into corporate. My husband was absolutely horrified at the thought. He was like, but you're happier now. Why would you do that? Exactly. And he's right, because I started thinking about it and I thought, wow, look at all I'd be giving up that I have now. And this is hard, but that doesn't mean it's impossible, right? And that's sort of a mirror of what I heard you saying, too, about your experience, where there's no looking back now, because what I was in before is just not acceptable.
And it's hard. Like, there are times when I look around for the jobs and be like, okay, what's out there? And they'll be like, nah.
No.
I'm good. Like, I always think about, okay, I know where this leads.
Yes.
I'm not going to, and I can try different. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that for me. So it's not worth it. Not worth it. So, yeah.
So I have one more question I would love to ask you, and that is, you seem to be someone who is constantly in this learning mode about who you are, how you operate, what you want to take on as your next challenge. What would you say, and whether this is professional or personal, whatever you would choose to share, what would you say is the next challenge that you want to take on for yourself?
Ooh, that is a good one. Right now, it's balancing out, getting to know more of the tech stuff in my business. I think that the technology is ever growing, right? And I want to stay ahead of the curve. I've rested in the comfort of being in management, but I think it's important to know all the details. And while I know enough, and I'm good, but I really need to focus on actually like knowing all the detailed parts. I got new equipment, and I'm like, okay, I need to read this manual, figure out all the things, troubleshoot, all the fun things that come along with it. So yeah, and of course, as usual, balance work-life balance.
Yes, absolutely. Always an ongoing, we're all a work in progress in that category, I guess, is the way that I think about that. And part of the reason I'm curious about that, and I love your answer with that, because there are things that are changing around us that we can choose to stay up to date and current and keep things growing and moving. And sometimes we just sort of shift the lens of our direction. And so it's almost like rebranding into these are the kinds of stories that we want to tell going forward. And that's the beauty of continuing to do the work that we love, is there's usually something that's out there that we would love to learn.
Yeah. And I realized that this was the right thing for me when new things would come on that related to my line of business. I would have never guessed that I would be a studio tech person. I would have never guessed that. I've been like, who cares? And now I'm like, ooh, what kind of board is that? Oh, I got to look that up. That's going to be great.
Tell me more. I have to see it.
Tutorials of things that I don't even have.
Yes, yes. Okay. I'm with you on this a little bit too more. I'm relating a little bit too deeply into that maybe. But, well, thanks again for the delightful conversation. I am certain that there are so many different things that anyone listening to our conversation would learn from. So thank you again for your time today. Very much appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.
If you want to learn more and get connected to Chris, you can find his contact information in the show notes. Thanks for listening. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who could benefit from it. Until next time, I'm Becky Fraser, reminding you to integrate who you are with how you lead. Okay, bye.